Hey, so what is up guys, this is Pohdoh here, and this time I got another news video. The full warrior tree has been released, and we can see the effects of every single talent. And before that, I'll quickly talk about the theory that a lot of people are having about the update release date. And obviously it's not 100% confirmed, it's just being widely discussed. But if you look at Nick's store right now, it says that the promotion is gonna end in 3 days, possibly 2 days by the time this video comes out. And that means there's gonna be a maintenance on Thursday, or earlier, Thursday or Friday. And if you know, Gameloft never has a maintenance on those days unless they're having a big event, unless they're updating the game. So keep that in mind, they always update the game on either Monday or Sunday. Sunday is pretty rare, but Monday is every week. So and they just had an update this week on Sunday, which is earlier than it should be. So I think that's a pretty big indication that the update will probably be this week. So obviously nothing is confirmed. Maybe Gameloft's just being really weird. They just want to fix some problem with the game this Thursday or this Friday, but it is very strange. And the only reason they would have an update in the middle of the week like this is if they're updating the game. So anyways, moving on to the warrior talents. So if you guys don't want to actually watch the entire analysis, that's no problem. I'm briefly flashing over all the pictures here, and they're all the corrected pictures. Keep in mind, Gameloft did mess up with the pictures here again, and the descriptions are messed up. And I like how they actually fixed their previous image. Previously, they also got the image wrong. They flipped over 2 talents, and then I called them out on it, and I fixed it myself. And then this time, they actually fixed it and gave out the correct talents, which is the first tier where it flipped over the armor break and the shout upgrade. So keep that in mind. And like I say, if you don't want to watch analysis, then you can just briefly read it and tell me guys what your opinions are of it, and then that's all. But for the rest who actually want to see my in-depth analysis, because I did spend a lot of time thinking this over, then just keep on watching. So yeah, it actually, for the most part, to sum it up, it looks interesting. It looks kind of nerfed, but it looks interesting. So for the talent mastery, I think we already been through all of this. I won't talk too long about the stuff we already knew about, or the stuff I discussed in the previous video. But basically, the main thing I have to point out is that there is no martialist stance. Just like the Guardian tree had no Guardian stance in the talent mastery, this one does not have martialist stance in it. So the effect is a lot shorter and a lot less powerful, which I think is great because it leads to a little more creativity instead of just picking one talent mastery and then that's like your entire class right there. So two-hand hair, offhand hair, that's just two-hand and one-handed weapons respectively. Nothing too very generic. And Hero's Blood, that sounds pretty interesting, except I don't know how useful it's gonna be in practice, because you may be like, oh, that's so overpowered. When they get really low health, then they can move really fast and do a little more damage. Well, I'm sorry to break it to you, but if you're at really low health as a DPS warrior, you're gonna die 2 seconds later, and all the speed in the world is not gonna do you any good. So, and even if with a healer, if your health is that low that this effect becomes really noticeable, then you're probably gonna die anyway. So it's not really gonna do you any favors. But it sounds pretty useful for PvE for dungeons here and there, I guess. I mean, sounds pretty situational, but who knows how well it's gonna work out in practice. As for this tier, we already knew about this. I already showed it in my previous video, but overall, I mean, it's pretty cool. The upgrade, it changes the shout from like a passive bonus to like a more active bonus where it's really short and possibly might have a much longer cooldown, but at the same time it's have a much greater effect, so you can use it more strategically instead of using it just as a brainless passive buff. So I mean, that sounds pretty cool, and it overall sounds a lot more useful than the armor break. The armor break reducing armor value by 15%. I don't know what that's about. So then, I think I mentioned in my previous video, they got the first tier of talent correct, but they messed up with everything else. So yeah, I'll be showing the corrected version of the pictures in just a sec. So here's a corrected picture for the second tier of talents. It's not, the top one is not execute. It's actually that one talent where it's like Swift Strike does offhand and main hand damage or something like that. But pretty much all it pretty much amounts to is more hit, which is really good, since most DPS warriors, because of the epics, the best epic right now is a two-handed weapon, so most DPS warriors are going to obviously be two-handers, and two-handers have a really big problem of having really shitty hit rates. So this is obviously gonna be a must in my opinion. Garrote, which is the bottom one, Vortex Blade skill, Master Swordsman effect. That's just pretty much like Garrote, where if you use it again and again, then it'll have no cooldown. But the only issue is that, I mean, it doesn't do very much damage. 68% main and offhand damage, and like compared to some of the other skills DPS warriors have, it's not too useful except for in dungeons. Except for dungeons and all, but for PvP, I don't think people are gonna spec this. I think they're gonna probably spec the hit rate one, since I do not believe the warrior gear has hit rate. But I may be wrong since I don't really have a warrior myself. And let's see. Oh yeah, the Fear of God, the Executed talent also has something about reducing dodge and parry chance, which I think is gonna be more relevant against tanks and Sins, possibly melees, but you know, it's a pretty small bonus overall. I do like to note that combined, both the hit rate and the reduction in dodge and parry chance is gonna pretty much make DPS warrior damage a lot more consistent. There's gonna be no more of this, you know, oh, you know, you can attack and sometimes all your hits will miss and sometimes all of them will get dodged, or sometimes, you know, everything hits and you get a crit and it's super crazy burst. I don't think it's gonna be as luck based anymore. You know, that may be mitigated by the fact that they may just nerf DPS warrior damage overall, so this is just there to compensate for it. So regardless, I think this is a really good addition. This is a really good addition, and obviously you're still gonna miss a lot of shots against tanks and such, but it is an improvement. Since I know that one of the most frustrating things as a warrior or as a ranger in general, or as any melee class in general, is when you have a perfect execution, when you have perfect burst going, and then everything misses. All your shots just miss. Everything just get blocked or parried. It's just really annoying. There's no way to avoid it at all. So hopefully they get rid of that, like World of Warcraft. So, anyways, moving on to the next tier. I'm gonna try and make my analysis a little shorter, since I think my last video was a little too long. But regardless, oops, sorry, fixing the microphone. So this is just generic, you know, Sonic Slash and the silence, just like the last talent tree. No need to talk about that. And then the interesting thing is Decapitate. It's actually really early in the DPS warrior tree, and also you can only use it against someone whose HP is below 30%. And that's pretty cool, I guess. I mean, I don't know what to think about it. You really have to see exactly how much damage it does overall. Keep in mind, it does not run on morale anymore. It just says instantly deals 195% main hand damage, and that's a shit ton of damage. Like, to put into perspective, like your Vortex Blade does 68% main hand and offhand damage. Like, that amounts to, like, you know what, like 90 or 80% main hand damage. This is doing more than double that damage, and I guess it's really fast burst. And you can also do it instantly. I'm assuming that it's not going to be on the global cooldown as before. That's what made Decapitate so special. But you know, below 30%, I mean, at that point your target's probably gonna die soon anyway. So it's still pretty interesting, and I'm glad they changed it up at the very least. This may be a really big nerf, but you know, at the very least, you know, it's not just, you know, oh, Decapitate's off cooldown, time to spam it. You know, it might require a little more dot, and it might, you know, add a little more skill to warriors, which was a really big problem this update. I think anyone could be a quote-unquote pro warrior. It was just way too easy to play. See, and for the next talent, there is gonna be a new skill, Aura Unleashed. I'll just call it Aura, I guess. I don't know. I'm really tempted to just call it Fury Smite, but it's just pretty much like a stun skill. There's main and offhand damage. You know, pretty generic, but you know, I think it's gonna be a mandatory just because DPS warriors, they don't have the fear condition on their Decapitate anymore. So that's gonna be, they're gonna have much less reliable stun. I mean, Decapitate was so powerful last update. It was ridiculously powerful. The fact that it was a fear and it was never on diminishing return pretty much mean that it was a guaranteed stun, which is something that no other class really had. So regardless, you know, generic stun, not really much to talk about. We need to see exactly how much damage it does before we can find out how useful it actually is. And then this is an interesting one. Regular attacks have 2% chance to cause a guillotine effect, which means you can use Decapitate whenever. And just regular attacks. So if you're a two-handed person, two-handed warrior, then it should proc here and there reasonably often. But the only issue is that it's in a horrible talent point, and it requires 5 points into it. 5 points for a 10% chance. And the bigger issue is that it's on the same tier as as Aura, and the issue there is that because Aura is obviously a no-brainer, you're gonna be speccing 1 point into the skill, 3 points into the stun, then that only leaves 1 point left for the Decapitate talent. And I'll talk about this a little more. You want to be speccing for the Ankle Slash in the tank tree, which is an AoE stun, but it's 11 points into it, meaning that you cannot invest that many points into the battle tree itself. And I'll talk about this a little more at the very end, just so you guys, just not to bore you guys as much. But essentially, the problem with this talent is not the talent itself, but the fact that it costs so many talent points and it's in a really bad position. And now for another new skill, there's gonna be Blood Rain. I'll just call it Rain. I guess it's kind of weird calling out all these new names, but pretty much is just like sacrificing health for more damage immediately and more morale as well, which I think might be a problem. Morale, because there's no Fury Smite, and the Fury Smite buff gave warriors a lot more haste, and what it did is that gave you like 40% haste or whatever amount of haste, and pretty much means that your auto attacks are going to be attacking a lot faster, and that means more morale, which means that you can spam your attacks. But we don't have this in this update, and I think that might be a problem since morale isn't exactly endless. It runs out pretty fast unless you have a steady source. And I think this is kind of a solution, and it would be cool, except the only issue is that it costs 25% of your health. 25%! I would be okay if this was like 5k, health or something, because then, you can use it, and if you have a lot of health, then it'll be alright. But 25%, that's a shit ton of HP, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just a lot of HP to be using. It sounds so risky if you're running double DPS. Even with a healer, I don't really even know. And also the fact you can't use it when you're at like 50% health or when you're below 50% health, because if you use it below 50% health, then it pretty much means you're gonna die a second later, since DPS wards are super squishy. And I don't really know what to think about this. It sounds really cool in concept, but I think the HP cost is a little too steep. One thing that I forgot to mention was that Blood Rain also causes you to do 20% additional damage, or more specifically means that your target will take 20% more damage, which is different since that means your Vortex Blade won't do 20% more damage to everyone, which I don't think is that important anyways. But regardless, the main problem with the upgrades is the same issue with the Decapitate upgrade, is that you don't have that many talent points. I would expect most DPS wards to spec in the Guardian tree up to Ankle Slash for AoE stun. And the issue with that is, like I said before, you don't have that many. You have 26 talent points to spend in Bloodseeker. That's it. 26 points. And that also means you can only spend 5 points per tier. And you're already spending 1 point on Blood Rain, so that leaves you only 4 points left for the upgrades. And the upgrades are not that great overall. The first one is where if your health is below this amount, then the health cost is decreased by, it pretty much becomes free if you upgrade all 5 points into it, which is not going to be possible for the most part. It's not going to be reasonable. And let's see. The issue with this is that it's the same thing as some of the other talent points in the mage spec. It just costs too many points for so little benefit. I don't expect people to spec this at all. Just my personal opinion. But I don't know. I'm not worried. What do I know? So looking down, the other talent's a little bit better. Increases the duration. Actually, I take that back. It is not better. It is actually worse. It increases the duration of it, and also increases the health cost by 21%. So get this: if you fully upgrade this talent, Blood Rain will be taking away over 50% of your health. 50%. So if you're at 60% health, then this could kill you, using the skill. This really sucks, actually. I would probably just, now that I read it, I'm pretty sure all warriors are gonna be spending their points in the Decapitate upgrade. So I guess the Decap upgrade is not that bad, because now I have the talent points to spend it, but Blood Rain, sounds kind of gimmicky, pretty risky for an okay reward, but the talent points, the upgrades are not that great at all. I'm sorry, I may be totally wrong, but that's just my first impressions. And then for the final one is Martialist Stance. I'm assuming it's Martialist Stance. It looks really, really similar. And they changed the effects so you don't take any additional damage. Thank God. So then it just pretty much is gonna be like Skyfire. And I really like the movement speed. That might actually be really helpful against people that are running away, against healers, against archers, etc, etc, etc. So sounds pretty cool. Sounds a lot more fun. Or maybe you could just use it for the movement speed. That'd be pretty funny to watch. So then once again, now my final opinion on this is the DPS warrior tree doesn't look as good as the tank tree. I'm assuming the numbers are somewhat reasonable. I mean, if Aura Unleash does like a shit ton of damage, then forget it. This will be fine. Or if Decapitate does a lot more damage than expected, then you know, obviously DPS warriors will be fine. But I'm assuming that the numbers are similar to before. It's kind of worrisome. I mean, we all saw this coming. DPS warriors getting nerfed. They were so overpowered. This update just not, well, I think about it, not DPS warriors were overpowered. DPS warrior heal teams were overpowered. Specifically those teams. Just the way that they're structured. DPS warriors are like the only DPS class that can really take down a healer in arena, or the fastest ones that can take down a healer, because they had the most amount of single target control and like the most amount of damage, which is pretty ridiculous if you think about it. They're kind of like ice mages, except better in like every way possible. They had decap stun, ankle interrupt, which is all somewhat reasonable to get. They had Fury Smite for a lot of bursts. Fury Smite decap was a shit ton of damage, and they didn't rely on procs like ice mages. They also had really good support with shouts, with HP shout, and with the attack power shout. And they also had they had 10-second charge, which is really good for catching healers running away, which is something that catching healers in a line of sighting, which is something that archers couldn't really do. And then they also there's something off at the top of my head. Oh yeah, decap trinket. Decap trinket was stronger than the archer snipe trinket. And then there was one more thing that made them really good. This is off the top of my head. Oh yeah. Probably the most important thing, possibly the most important thing, is that they had a talent which allowed them to get 50% more healing. So I think that's especially one reason why DPS warrior heal teams were so powerful this update. But regardless, tell me guys what you think. This video was actually longer than I expected. Oh well. So anyways, tell me guys if you're excited for this update. Tell me guys if you think the update's gonna come out this week, which is a stretch, and I may just prove to be completely wrong. I may just end up looking like an idiot. But I think it's a pretty good guess. This is really strange for Gameloft to do something like a maintenance in the middle of the week for no reason. So anyways, Pohdoh here. I'll catch you guys later. Bye.